At a company Christmas party, things take a dark turn when Laura, Thomas's vindictive boss, drenches him in front of everyone, humiliating him with harsh words. Just when Thomas seems completely defeated, someone unexpected steps in, turning the tables in a way no one could have predicted. Who is this mysterious ally, and how will they change the course of Thomas's fate? Don't miss this intense showdown and the surprising twist that follows.
Don't talk back, you incompetent fool. Just because you got lucky and the numbers went up a bit, you think you're hot stuff now that you're a supervisor. People like you who rely on outdated, individual dependent methods are no longer needed.
I snapped back at my supervisor, who was always more concerned with taking credit for himself, and from that day on, she held a grudge against me. Using the branch manager's authority for harassment, my work environment was destroyed, and my performance began to plummet. Seeing my diminished spirit, my wife grew worried, but I pretended everything was fine and hid the harassment from her. During the parent company's Christmas party, which I attended, my harassing boss confronted me and insulted me horribly. As I tried to endure it, my wife, who had secretly come to the party to check on me, stepped in front of my harassing boss. My harassing supervisor boasted, "I'm the branch manager's daughter. Try to find me if you can," and began insulting my wife as well. But when it became clear that my wife's position was far above hers, she turned pale and began to tremble. I'm Thomas Green. This year, I turned 34, and I work for a leading precision parts manufacturing company in America. I joined the company right after graduating from a technical high school, and now I am in charge of the quality control department. Considering that I graduated high school at 18 and became a supervisor after 15 years of service, you might think my promotion was quite slow. But in our company, which processes precision parts, the awareness of quality control is extremely high, and becoming a site supervisor is actually not an easy feat. Before explaining that situation, let me tell you about my life up to now. I was born into an ordinary office worker family and attended public elementary and middle schools. However, shortly after I entered middle school, my father's company went bankrupt due to the recession, and our family's financial situation worsened rapidly. My father was a diligent worker, but he didn't have any notable qualifications, so he started working as a temporary worker at an auto factory to support the family. Since he had been doing desk work until then, he started to get stressed with the unfamiliar fieldwork, and his lifestyle became more irregular. One day, sleep-deprived from overwork, my father was walking through an area under construction for new equipment installation. He overlooked a caution sign, tripped over a step, and got seriously injured. Although the factory gave him some compensation, they determined that the accident was his fault for not using the detour, and he couldn't return to work even after recovering from his injuries. At that time, my mom was working at a nearby supermarket, and after my dad got injured, she started working night shifts to support the family. Eventually, my mom, like my dad before her, began to get stressed from overwork, and she would fall asleep unexpectedly even while doing household chores. Once, while handling fire for cooking, my mom dozed off, and it was only because I was nearby to turn off the stove that we avoided a disaster. It could have easily turned into a fire. My dad, concerned for my mom, tried to go back to work, but due to the injuries he sustained at the factory, physical work was tough for him, and with the rise of AI in companies, even his preferred desk jobs were decreasing, making our family's future uncertain. To help in any way I could, I started delivering newspapers early in the morning, with special permission from my school. The earnings were small, but by contributing to the household, we could reduce my mom's night shifts slightly. By that time, my dad stopped searching for outside work and instead actively took on house chores so that my mom could rest immediately upon coming home, lessening her burden. We managed to keep our family from falling apart, living on a very low standard without going into debt. Initially, I thought about skipping high school to work, but my parents convinced me to at least finish high school, so I enrolled in the local technical high school. My grades were decent, so the entrance exams for the technical high school were manageable. After middle school, I continued with my newspaper route and, once in high school, took on other part-time jobs, such as working at fast food restaurants or for a cleaning service, as long as they were appropriate for my age and hours. My dad started doing online work from home while managing the house chores. The pay was low, but he took on any job that could turn his administrative skills into money. My mom continued her supermarket job, but with the additional income from my dad and me, her night shifts decreased significantly, allowing her to maintain her health. Our family was always preoccupied with time and money calculations, and we rarely had the luxury to go out as a family or even eat out occasionally. Once, my parents apologized to me about our lifestyle. "Thomas, sorry for making you live such a tight life with all these part-time jobs. What are you suddenly saying that? Dad, you do all the house chores. I can't do much physical work anymore, so this is the least I can do."
Thomas, with your grades, you could have easily gone to college.
But we couldn't support you. We're sorry.
Stop it. I've never thought of our life as tough. Both of you have always worked honestly without cutting corners or exploiting others. Well, we didn't have much else going for us. Don't say that. Nowadays, some people think that a life where you cheat to make money is better, but I don't like that.
Thomas,
No matter what anyone says, I know how hard you both worked, and I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed at all. I'm grateful to you both. So please, don't apologize. When I said that, it seemed to alleviate a lot of the guilt my parents felt towards me. Looking back, it's surprising how mature I sounded as a high schooler, even if it was a spur-of-the-moment thing. But because these were my genuine thoughts, I could articulate them quickly, and I believe I had already established the fundamental parts of my worldview back then. So I graduated from high school. Around that time, the company I work for now decided to build a factory alongside a branch in my hometown, and I applied, getting hired as a field worker. This company is well known nationwide and offers good benefits, so even as a high school graduate working locally, the pay was much better than other local jobs. My mother could cease working night shifts totally if I brought home a significant income, and we could even be able to restore our old house. With these realistic goals in mind, I threw myself into my work after joining the company. While other high school graduates who joined with me spent weekends hanging out or engaging in workplace romances, I focused solely on my job. I always liked detailed manual work, so my work efficiency was very high, and I quickly gained recognition, leading to increased pay. Seeing that working hard could increase my income motivated me even more, and I concentrated even harder. My fast and high-quality work, with almost no defective products, made me a standout even at the headquarters. In the summer of my second year with the company, a delegation led by the head of the quality control department from headquarters visited. When they came to my work area, they watched my work for a while and then asked to speak with me privately. I met with the head of quality control from headquarters, who praised my ability to balance speed and quality in my work. Until then, I had always been conscious of my work speed, but hadn't particularly focused on quality. However, the delegation wanted to know why my defect rate was extremely low, asking detailed questions about my thought process and focus at each stage of the work. At that time, I didn't give any particularly unusual answers. Maintaining my health to keep my senses sharp, cleaning my work area before and after the morning and afternoon shifts, regularly inspecting and maintaining my tools myself. That's what I think I said. The delegation seemed to expect specific points to focus on for each task, so they were disappointed with my answers. However, only the head of quality control noticed my seemingly mundane answers and said, "I want to test putting you in charge of quality control for this department." This idea was apparently a sudden inspiration from the head, so it wasn't decided on the spot, but after some discussions at headquarters, it was decided to test it by assigning me 2 workers and observing how I managed. Suddenly, being told to supervise two older workers confused me, but since I was already friendly with them, they followed my instructions without worrying about the age difference. That said, my main advice was to avoid staying up late and get proper rest, eat well, take care of the tools, and clean frequently. I didn't give specific instructions on the actual work. The results came surprisingly quickly. The workers under my supervision increased their work speed by over 10%, and their defect rate was cut by more than half. At this point, even the headquarters staff who had no expectations for this plan changed their minds and began to evaluate my work differently. Even though most of the work was automated, just improving the workers' focus made a significant difference in the numbers. So no one laughed at my elementary school lifestyle guidance approach anymore. Maintaining focus, keeping the workplace clean, and taking care of tools by hand. By maintaining these basics, the overall quality of work naturally improved, and this in turn increased the overall work speed. Consistent health prevented disruptions in work movements, and personally maintaining tools allowed for immediate adjustments if the finish started to deviate, fixing issues before they caused significant errors. It might seem endlessly mundane and obvious, but proving it numerically had great significance. Gradually, the headquarters staff who were dispatched began to ask detailed questions about my work and started turning my actions into numerical standards. Thus, the tips for maintaining work quality I had were gradually compiled into shareable manuals, and sharing them across the company improved overall productivity. Even if someday AI advances and this sensory-based method is discarded, I was prepared to calmly carry out my responsibilities. For now, my sensory-based quality control system is recognized within the company, and last year I was promoted to quality control supervisor at this factory. In this company, the position of site supervisor is as powerful as a director on the field. Officially, it's lower than the desk workers, like assistant managers, but the impact on operations can match that of department heads, and the allowances are expanded, so the pay is higher than that of new assistant managers. When I said being a quality control supervisor wasn't considered a slow promotion here, it was based on these circumstances. However, I have no interest in advancing beyond my current position or even maintaining it. That said, I was more motivated than ever, having gained something more important than myself. I actually got married 5 years ago and have a healthy son. My son is only 3 years old, but he's already showing interest in making models and seems to have inherited my love for detailed work. My son doesn't need to follow the same path as me, but once he's a bit older, I plan to teach him the intricacies of detailed manual work, much to my wife's exasperation. In any case, I've managed to balance both work and family life quite well. Shifting my motivation from my parents to my wife and child, I was determined to continue working diligently. Though I had struggled during my school years, my efforts paid off, leading to a stable and successful life. However, recently, I've encountered some difficulties. The cause of these problems was my boss. Her name was Laura, a woman who was still only 28 years old, much younger than me. She was assigned as a desk worker manager in the quality control department and transferred to this branch last month as my superior. As I've repeatedly mentioned, the quality control department holds significant power in this company. Given that she was appointed as a manager in this department at such a young age, it was natural to assume she must have been highly capable. The reason I added naturally was because there was more to this. Laura was actually the daughter of the branch president and openly acknowledged this fact. In today's world, blatant nepotism is supposedly rare, but this appointment did not receive good rumors within the company. The branch president, who had a successful career at headquarters, was promoted to branch president due to his performance, but employees commonly believed his daughter didn't have any notable achievements. Reportedly, she graduated from a prestigious A-rank university and used her father's influence and connections within the company. Some uninhibited employees even speculated she had manipulated the senior directors with her charm. Laura was indeed a striking beauty, and several young employees frequently mentioned this. As for me, being married with a child, I didn't see her that way, and academic cliques were irrelevant to a high school graduate like me. Laura was just a manager to me. Nepotism and appointing important department heads was undesirable for the company, but there was nothing I could do about it. I had no intention of engaging in company politics or competing for promotions. I only cared about working well with anyone for the sake of the job, and I had no interest in probing into other people's business. Therefore, even after Laura was assigned, I continued my usual management duties without any particular actions. On her first day of assignment, Laura called me in. Thinking it would have been better if she greeted me during a site tour, I headed to meet Laura.
So, you are Thomas Green, right? I've heard about you.
Laura, looking forward to working with you.
First, let me ask, how long do you plan to continue with this analog quality control?
As long as I'm the chief, or at least as long as this method produces results in numbers, I intend to continue.
But this only works properly because you're here, right?
It's not that it won't work at all without me. However, it's true that there are parts that can't be fully standardized, but there's no need to stick to this method at all costs. If a better method is found, we should switch to it.
Well, you speak like it wouldn't bother you if your authority disappeared.
That's exactly how I feel.
I see. Then let me ask, what happens if you die today?
What?
Answer me. If you suddenly died today, what would happen to this company, which relies on a system that only works perfectly with you?
Even if that happened, although it couldn't switch immediately, the manual would still be somewhat effective. So while maintaining that, we would search for an effective management method. As I answered, I felt something strange about Laura's calm question of what would happen if I died today.
Thank you for the model answer, but that wouldn't help the company management, would it?
Are you saying I should change the quality control method?
I'm not saying that, but I think systems that rely on specific individuals should be replaced with permanent ones as soon as possible.
You mean you want to purify the system so that it produces the same results regardless of who is involved?
That's right.
Hey, what's the basic principle of quality control?
I don't think it's necessary to talk about that now.
Just answer.
Surprised by Laura's sudden angry outburst, I reluctantly answered. To consistently maintain stable quality, foresee internal and external changes, and take measures, and constantly improve the quality base.
Well, I see even a high school graduate can memorize those principles.
Being blatantly discriminated against for my education, after being asked what would happen if I died today, I understood Laura's character. Honestly, she was the worst kind of person to have as a boss, but since I had no power to choose my superior, I had to find a way to get along. However, even in this situation, I had no intention of flattering Laura to improve my standing within the company. More importantly, being dragged away from the field to deal with such nonsense was painful. Can we get to the conclusion?
What did you say?
You've been discussing general theories that aren't necessary for my current work, and I don't think it's something I should stop my fieldwork to answer. The quicker you get to the point, the sooner I can return to the work.
Are you saying my talk is pointless?
My job is field quality control. Even if we discuss work theories here all day, the defect rate won't decrease, it'll increase. If you have a reason to continue this, please say it, because at this moment, you are only harming the company's profits.
You, insolent high school graduate. Do you know who I am?
I wasn't trying to attack Laura, just stating what I honestly thought. But even that was enough to strip away Laura's thin facade. Glaring and half standing from her chair, Laura, breathing heavily, said,
Fine, get lost. You'll regret this later.
It was clear that she intended to retaliate against me later, but I couldn't bring myself to flatter Laura just to avoid it. Even if problems arose later, I would deal with them then. I decided that and returned to the field to continue my work. Immersed in the tension of the field work, I completely erased Laura from my mind and focused on my job. I realized just how much I loved my job. And from the very next day, Laura's attacks on me began. I expected some level of harassment, but her relentlessness exceeded my expectations. First, she conducted surprise inspections of my department, checking each process and causing delays. The delays forced me to ask the workers to work overtime, lowering the profit margin of my department. She also ordered that the cleaning and tool checks I insisted on before and after work be reduced to once every 3 days, calling them unnecessary. The workers, who understood the importance of these tasks, flooded Laura with complaints, and she soon retracted her order. However, Laura wrongly assumed that I had instructed the workers to complain, and she reported this to the upper management out of spite. As a result, I was summoned to headquarters multiple times to explain myself, which took me away from the field frequently. During branch meetings, Laura would nitpick every time I voiced an opinion. My well-reasoned suggestions were supported by some members, but they soon became targets of Laura's harassment and backed off. To Laura, this might have been a game, a way to conquer my territory using various tactics. To me, it felt like an overwhelmingly powerful enemy suddenly appeared, using money, strategies, and threats to forcibly take away the territory I had worked hard to expand. There was no place for me to appeal this unfairness. I had accepted that not engaging in company politics might put me at a disadvantage, but I was determined to focus on fieldwork. However, being attacked so blatantly and unfairly in such a short period destabilized me. I used to wake up early even on weekends and play with my son all day, but now I couldn't get up until almost noon, and I couldn't play with him for long. The other day, I got annoyed when my son followed me around wanting to play and told him, "Go play by yourself," a bit too harshly. Surprised by my rare scolding, my son ran to my wife Amy, crying. Amy was surprised that I had taken out my frustration on our son for the first time and asked me, "Is something wrong?" after putting our son to bed. Amy is a very calm person, and even when I occasionally lost my temper, she never responded with anger. She would calmly ask if there was a reason for my emotional outburst and try to find a solution through dialogue. At that time too, instead of complaining to me for being harsh on our son, she gently asked why I had acted so out of character. If the cause of my stress had been something personal, I would have honestly confided in Amy. "No, I'm sorry. I'm just a bit tired."
You've been looking pale and seem unwell lately. Are you overworking yourself?
Thinking she had seen through me, I replied, "I'm a bit busy, but it's just temporary," and said nothing more. I wanted to resolve the current situation on my own, even if it took time. I continued to face Laura's harassment and managed to handle it somehow, but the profitability of the field I managed kept declining, reaching a point where my position as a supervisor was at risk. Amidst my anxiety, I received a notice about the parent company's Christmas party. I wasn't in the mood, but I couldn't skip this event held only once every few years, so I attended, intending to relieve some stress by talking to close acquaintances. The venue, a hall large enough to hold a concert for thousands, felt spacious even with over 1,000 attendees, and the party progressed in a bright atmosphere with a buffet. I enjoyed conversations with people from the parent company and acquaintances from other branches whom I hadn't seen in a while. However, as the event neared its end, the atmosphere around me suddenly grew tense when Laura appeared, pushing aside my conversation partners. Those pushed aside looked annoyed but whispered, "She's the branch president's daughter," and quietly distanced themselves, sensing trouble. Seeing their reactions, I realized that Laura's attacks on me were widely known, not just within my branch, but throughout the entire group. Though it was unpleasant to be the subject of rumors, I had to deal with Laura, who was the root cause. Laura, quite drunk, had a very red face and sluggish eye movements. "You've had quite a bit to drink. Are you okay?"
Who are you?
Amazed that she didn't recognize me, I reluctantly replied, "It's Thomas."
Oh, Thomas. What are you doing here?
"Well, it's a Christmas party."
I know that. I'm asking why someone who can't do their job is here, freeloading on drinks and food.
Laura's voice was loud, and I felt the eyes of everyone around us. Even though Laura was heavily drunk, I knew that if I argued with her, it would become fodder for gossip. I silently turned my back on her to distance myself. At that moment, I felt a cold, unpleasant sensation from the back of my head down to my back, followed by gasps from the surrounding people. I knew what had happened. Laura had thrown the contents of her glass at my back as I turned away. She had a tall champagne glass filled to the brim, and the liquid soaked my head and back. As I stopped, Laura quickly moved in front of me and grabbed my collar.
Hey,
Don't you turn your back when your superior is talking.
This is going too far.
Don't talk back, you incompetent fool. Just because you got lucky and the numbers went up a bit, you think you're hot stuff now that you're a supervisor. People like you who rely on outdated, individual-dependent methods are no longer needed.
Now the area around us was silent, and everyone's eyes were on Laura and me. I heard someone say, "This is too much. Someone stop her." But then another voice said, "That's the branch president's daughter. If you interfere, you'll be next." And the area fell silent again.
Do you remember acting all high and mighty on your first day? Watching your downfall since then has been pitiful. With all the trouble you've caused, your precious profit margin is just slightly above average now. By next year, I'll replace you and your individual dependent quality control system with my new plan. Then you'll either be demoted or kicked out. You should start looking for a new job now.
I couldn't bear to listen to Laura's insults any longer, but my focus was no longer on her. Instead, my attention was drawn to a woman in an elegant dress who appeared from the crowd behind Laura. It was my wife, Amy. Amy, now 32, still looked as youthful as ever and maintained her figure. She looked stunning in her dress, drawing all the eyes that had been on Laura's disgraceful display. Laura noticed the crowd's attention shifting behind her and turned to face Amy.
You're Laura from the Quality Control Department, right?
who are you?
If you're just a bystander, stay out of this.
This man might be your subordinate, but publicly insulting him and pouring alcohol on him is unacceptable.
Amy's voice was calm, but carried a chilling anger I had never seen before. Even I felt intimidated by her tone, so it was no surprise that Laura, clearly rattled by the sudden appearance of a formidable opponent, tried to regain her composure by raising her voice.
What?
Who do you think you are? An old woman suddenly complaining? Do you even know who my father is? He's the branch president, and I'm a manager here. This man is my subordinate. It's his fault that our performance has been dropping recently. What's wrong with scolding the cause of our company's declining profits at a Christmas party? If you keep complaining, I'll treat you the same way.
Amy's cheek twitched slightly at Laura's outburst, but she soon responded with a charming smile. In any other situation, it would have been a very attractive smile, but there seemed to be an invisible energy emanating from Amy, causing the people around to avert their eyes. Then I heard someone say, "Isn't she the CEO's daughter of the parent company?" This whisper quickly spread among the crowd, with more murmurs following. "Isn't she the CEO's daughter?" "Yeah, Laura is the branch president's daughter. Everyone knows that." "No, not her. The one in the white dress. She's the daughter of the parent company's CEO." "What? No way. Seriously? She is indeed the CEO's daughter." Even though she's on maternity leave, she still holds a director's title at the headquarters. Oh man, if she's a director, Laura's in deep trouble. Indeed, Amy is the daughter of the president of the parent business where I work, and despite being on maternity leave, she remained a director at the headquarters. I met Amy when my quality control methods gained company-wide attention, and she came to inspect the field. As I answered her numerous questions, we grew fond of each other, began sharing information beyond work, and naturally started dating, eventually getting married. We had a small family-only wedding and kept Amy's position a secret from my colleagues. We wanted to avoid any consideration or political maneuvering at work. Regarding the trouble with Laura, if I had consulted Amy from the beginning, she could have intervened with the overwhelming authority of the parent company. However, I didn't want to burden Amy with such things. But seeing my recent drastic change, Amy, convinced that the cause was work-related, decided to act directly when I wouldn't answer her questions. Hearing the whispers about Amy, Laura's face suddenly looked uncertain, and she glanced around nervously, listening to the murmurs. When she realized that Amy's position was far stronger than hers, Laura's face quickly turned pale. Seeing Laura's face go from beet red to pale blue in seconds, I thought, people's faces really do change color like in cartoons. Amy neither confirmed nor denied the whispers, but she spoke calmly to the now intimidated Laura.
Do you know why Thomas cleans the site thoroughly before starting work? It's not just to keep dust off the products, it's a sign of gratitude and respect for the place. And why do you think he maintains his tools himself?
Well,
It's not just to keep them sharp, but to show gratitude and respect for the tools. And finally, after expressing gratitude to the place and the tools, what does Thomas do?
Laura, completely overwhelmed by Amy's presence, couldn't say a word.
The final step is a greeting, showing respect to the people working. Do you understand? Thomas isn't even primarily focused on quality control. He's expressing gratitude to everything involved in his work, the people, the tools, the place. By doing this, he naturally achieves a level of quality that no one else can reach.
Amy had accurately put into words the thoughts I had never articulated about my work, and I found myself listening intently.
It's only natural that he couldn't get results after you dismissed all these important gestures as unnecessary. Laugh if you want, call it outdated, individual dependent methods if you must. But I've never seen anything built by people who mock this last for even 10 years, let alone 100. How long do you think the things you boast about creating will last?
After saying that, Amy tugged at my sleeve and started walking towards the exit. As I silently walked beside her, people naturally made way, and we walked out of the venue through the path they created. On the way home, Amy murmured, "I'm sorry. I thought you'd hate me handling it this way, but I couldn't just watch in silence." I replied, "No, it's fine. I appreciate it." When I told her that morning that I'd be home late due to the Christmas party, she hadn't mentioned she'd be attending too, so I was genuinely surprised by her appearance. But I understood that she acted out of concern for me. We knew each other so well that no further words were needed between us. From the next day, my work environment greatly improved. Laura completely stopped interfering with me. Although Amy hadn't mentioned her position at all at the party, many people knew who she was. The story of Laura being rebuked by Amy for insulting a subordinate and being completely defeated quickly spread throughout the group companies. Wherever Laura went, people would whisper, "There goes the one from the Christmas party," and snicker behind her back. She was so bothered by this that she rarely left her desk. Thanks to this, Laura stopped coming to the field to interfere, and I regained a very comfortable working environment. Since that night, rumors about my relationship with Amy gradually spread. Fortunately, my colleagues' attitude towards me didn't change. For years, I hadn't used my wife's influence at work, and my colleagues understood they didn't need to treat me differently. Thus, even after Amy's position became widely known, I could work in an ideal environment without getting entangled in petty office politics. Soon, the atmosphere in my workplace returned to its former positive state, and both efficiency and defect rates were the best in the company. In response to these results, headquarters decided to expand my management methods across the entire group. I was also offered a promotion to quality control manager, but I requested to stay in the field, and it was granted. Even so, my work scope and authority effectively matched that of a manager, but my title and work location remained the same. While I was regaining my energy, an incident occurred. Laura was suddenly dismissed, and her father, the branch president, was also removed from his position. It was a bolt from the blue for me, who still had no interest in office politics, but according to my colleagues, there had been rumors since the Christmas party. The attention Laura attracted at the party led to scrutiny of her actions, and the branch president, who had given his daughter too many privileges, was reprimanded by the CEO of the parent company and had his authority reduced. It was also revealed that Laura had been harassing many other employees and had been receiving kickbacks from multiple contractors. Apparently, there had been small reports before, but Laura's forcefulness and her father's power had suppressed them, leading to the current situation. Initially, they planned to handle it internally, but since the kickbacks with external contractors could lead to criminal charges, they decided on dismissal after consulting with lawyers to clarify the situation. The branch president, who had given his daughter such privileges, naturally couldn't maintain his position either. For me, who had been harassed by Laura, it should have felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. However, Laura was already a thing of the past for me, and I had no particular feelings about her fate now. I am now dedicated to making my management methods standard across the company. I have no intention of relying on my wife's influence, but I have always felt Amy's discreet support making my work easier. I have never verbally thanked Amy for her support, pretending not to notice. But staying silent, thinking our feelings are mutual, has started to feel wrong to me. Once my current work settles, I plan to take my family on a small trip and properly thank Amy for everything she has done. Just as Amy verbalized her thoughts back then, I intend to live my life always remembering to respect the people, things, and places involved in my work and to continue creating good things.